Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale with one of my favorite guests of all time, back on the channel after a rather lengthy liaison from the game. Marcel P, welcome back, man.
Hey man, thanks for having me back. It's been a long time. I do really miss coming back on
Uh,
your YouTube
Dude,
channel.
where did you go, man? Where did you go?
Oh man, sort of a long story, but basically, so here are the main things that brought me away from the game. The initial sort of break started from me going back to the Philippines. My grandma was really, really sick, and she actually sadly ended up, expectedly and very peacefully, ended up passing away a few months after that visit that I made. But basically, I went back to the Philippines to visit her, and that was a time where I didn't want to obviously sort of step away from the game and not be on my mobile phone when
Of course.
family members
So sorry to hear that, man.
yeah, I appreciate that.
Glad you got the opportunity to go spend some time with her, though, on the other side of the world.
Yeah, I did get to see her when she was still very much sort of able to hold conversations and yeah, I was very glad that I was able to make that trip. So that's sort of what sparked my sort of stepping away from the game initially. And then from there, I had always been pretty swamped. My time in terms of having, I do work a full-time job. For those for the viewers that don't know, as a software engineer at Google, I am quite busy, and I had sort of, as you'd expect when playing and investing that much time into a game competitively, I'd seen many other parts of my sort of job and sort of hobbies on the side deteriorate, and it's really tough to see that, especially when you really love the activity you're doing, playing a mobile game competitively. And I had decided that the best move would be, at least for me, the way I've sort of stepped away from or taken breaks from games or things that I find I'm doing too much in the past. It's almost always the way I do it is cold turkey. Just completely
Cold turkey, yeah.
please. Otherwise, I have a hard time stepping away. And so it is a combination of wanting to do that, stepping away, sort of cold turkey to really, yeah, to see what life would be like, sort of away from the game. And the second thing was, which is why I didn't really sort of make a big announcement out of it, was I mean, as you see oftentimes with competitive players, especially in Clash Royale, I noticed in the community, a lot of players will make this big sort of dramatic retirement speech, and
Yep.
just didn't want to have anything to do with that. I mean, I wasn't ready to fully say anyway that I'm stepping away for good, and I didn't want to dramatically have this massive like goodbye party where everyone reminisces and leaves long, lengthy messages about how they're gonna miss you. I'm not about that. I want to step away, and I mean, if I want to come back, like I sort of am. I'll talk about that a bit later, but I wanted to make sure that it's not like this thing where over and over people are like, "Are you back? Are you not?" And like, I thought you said you retired. What are you doing? And so I just decided to take a break, cold turkey, step away, and I apologize deeply to people that I sort of maybe worried. I got a lot of really touching messages, people being worried about. I did message at some point about my grandma's health, and so people were messaging about that. People were messaging about my own personal health, which I'll reassure everyone it didn't have to do with that at all.
Good to hear. Yep.
Deeply to Team Queso as well, who I definitely could have handled things a little bit better on the communication. On that end, I did represent them for a lot of tournaments. But yeah, I think overall, I mean, I do apologize for the communication, sort of the way I communicated or did not communicate my sort of stepping away from the game. But I really do think it is the best way for me to sort of take that time away. I deleted all my communication apps, Discord, WeChat, all the other stuff, to sort of not have me sort of peeking over and over.
Yeah, and at the risk of speaking for Team Queso and anybody else in the community that felt like that you kind of disappeared on them, I think it's incredibly understandable given the circumstances, and obviously everybody, you were such. I say you were as if like you're no longer with us, but you are such a great guy, and I think it was just like no, just kind of. Just from my vantage point, it was just like, no, like Marcel's the best. Like, I don't want to, I just selfishly don't want to lose you, not as a guest on my channel, but just as a friend who plays the game, So I was so excited when I actually saw you return to the game. Before I ask you, like, kind of what made you came back and under what circumstances it was, can you talk, just like totally a curveball question here, but can you talk a little bit about what you do at Google as a software engineer or designer? What did you say you were?
Yeah, I can't divulge too much, I guess.
Yes, top secret stuff off the table, but yeah.
Yeah, I currently work on a database project at Google. It's called Spanner for any tech geeks out there that want to search exactly what it is I work on. It's the world's first horizontally scalable, consistent database. It's been a really exciting project. I've met with some of the smartest people I'll probably ever meet in my lifetime. I have some of the best mentors that I'll keep with me for the rest of my life. I've been at Google for about a year and a half now, and it's been a totally amazing experience. Benefits are great. The work
Yeah.
could be better, but I mean, that's how it is. You know, and I'm happy to put in the time and learning so much, and yeah, getting all these benefits out of it and just learning a ton. And so Google's been awesome, and I do think that sort of investing my time more into that, and I'm also looking at taking more grad school classes here. I'm looking to start a grad school program probably next year, but I'm already starting sort of classes that'll count for credit for computer science, specifically sort of in the artificial intelligence
Very cool.
field. And so yeah, I think just putting my time more into that, which I really do enjoy. I am quite the nerd, I'll admit it. I'm proud of it.
No, that's all is super interesting stuff, like the future of artificial intelligence and what it's going to look like even in 10, let alone 50 years is just mind-boggling. So best of luck on that stuff, man. Incredibly exciting, obviously. But getting back to CR, what do you think, you know, under what terms are you back? Are you back in the competitive scene? I noticed that you did get 20 wins in the CCGS event or challenge, I guess. We'll talk a little bit about competitively where you stand right now, and also touch on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so competitively, I think I guess I'll go back a little bit and talk about what brought me back to the game and why I am, despite saying that I'm busy and I have these equipments, why I'm playing now. I guess as you'll see, sort of, you'll see me a little bit on ladder and randomly playing CCGS. I mean, even though I was taking this long break away from the game, it's still definitely on my mind. I missed the competitive aspect. I missed community so much. So many people I missed sort of just chatting with, catching up with, and like it's just difficult having spent so much time really falling in love with a game and a community to not think about it. And so I find myself constantly thinking about, you know, what kind of decks I could put together, even though I wasn't playing anymore, and just try to, every now and then I'd lurk on whether it was Twitter or just try on Reddit. I at least lurk on Reddit a good amount. I'd stepped away from Twitter a little bit, but on Reddit I try and see like what decks were out there and what the meta was, and just try and sort of think of what decks I could make. And so with that, I think that's sort of where my relationship with the game is now. And I think it's healthier, where it's less sort of a commitment to really compete in every single event out there and sort of stay in touch that much with the community. I haven't re-downloaded Discord. Well, I really do miss. I do chat with people like in game and in clans. I occasionally log into my Twitter, but I remember when I first fell in love with the game, it wasn't really about, you know, any crazy commitment and anything really about competing or making a ton of money by winning games or getting views on YouTube. It is just about the game itself and just, you know, trying to be as good as I could be and competing by thinking just about what the best decks I could make are. And I think in terms of the competitive landscape, I will try and play in events that I think aren't like a massive time commitment. I think CGS was a really cool example of that, where I try to get my 20 wins. I got that. I didn't do too hot on the bracket format, but it was still a lot of fun. And I just put in a couple, like an hour or two for the bracket format. Given that I got eliminated not all the way at the end, there wasn't too much of a time commitment.
Yeah.
And it was a ton of fun. And I think that I'm down to play events like that. I mean, towards the end of the season, if my schedule isn't looking too busy, I'll try and push on ladder, and if I'm pushing further up and feeling excited about it, I'll do it. Otherwise, yeah, I think just a relationship with the game where it's a lot more driven by my excitement and just how like, I guess at times if I feel like, oh, it looks like for this meta it requires level 5 Mega Knight and I don't have it, well, I'm just not going to play, and I don't feel too like crazy about
pressured.
it.
Yeah.
Pressure or any commitment like that, which I think I'm enjoying a lot more.
What about King's Cup 2? Do you think you might try to partake in that as like the player, the walk-on or whatever?
You know what? I haven't even seen the news about it. Maybe you could tell me about it. But
Sure. It's going to be really cool, actually. It's probably the coolest format that I've seen in a tournament ever in Clash Royale. And what it is there's 8 content creators who are like the team captains, a.k.a. kings. They all have one pro player, who have been selected from the finalists of CCGS spring season. So like Surgical Goblin, Action, Nem Sensei, like those guys. And then, so those are two of the teams. And then the third team member is going to be a play on. So it's going to be the public. So like guys like Colton and stuff are going to be trying out, Diego B, like a bunch of other guys. And hopefully there'll be a lot more pros to kind of get there through that process to make up the third person of those teams. And then the format is really cool too. Without going on and on about it, you get to choose, like it's one team goes against another team in sort of a bracket format, and you can choose which player you want to start out with, the king, the squire, or basically the pro, the walk-on, or the YouTuber. And then if you don't lose, you can stay on. So there's some strategy about, do you want to use your best pro towards the end, or do you want to put them towards the beginning? You know what I'm saying?
Interesting. Wow,
yeah.
Really cool format. Huh.
Yeah.
And qualify. I mean, when is the when or where? I guess
it's in Atlanta, so East Coast, and it's in October 27th and 28th. I want to say.
No, it's in the East Coast. That's a shame.
Yeah,
it's good for me though. Up there, I'd love to try and compete. I am on the West Coast over here, but the best coast, as we like to say.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know. I do like Pac over Biggie, but I like the East Coast over the West. But anyway, back on topic here. Before we get to this deck that you're actually playing right now, close to top 100, you were, just moments ago, with this Hog Rocket deck. Let me ask you two final questions. Number one is walking away from a thriving YouTube channel, right? So I think that you are on the way to be like the next Surgical Goblin, just totally blowing up and actually making a substantial income off of something that you did as a hobby. Was it tough to walk away from what looked like an incredibly awesome opportunity to be a big YouTube channel?
Oh, it is very tough. And even until today, I wonder, maybe I should have stuck with it. And I think while I really do I really did enjoy that and still look at it and wonder, I think I really do enjoy my life outside of YouTube and Clash Royale as well. And it's difficult, I guess, in terms of, I figured, so I think there were two things. One is sort of the time commitment, but second and most importantly, I always thought of myself as a YouTuber. In the, I think 12 videos that I made, I was pretty much entirely about strategy. Mm-hmm. And as I started sharing sort of my YouTube channel with my friends, and they would sort of urge me to sort of build more of a character, which I completely agree with in terms of getting more views and just being more entertaining, sort of being more engaging and cracking more jokes. And like that stuff I definitely agree with is what will lead to a more successful YouTube channel. But I always really enjoyed a lot more sort of really diving as deeply as I could into the strategy that I could provide and try and help the viewers with that. And I figured that if I were to just stick with that, I'd run out of content. Like there's only so much strategy I could really give.
Hey man, like you're preaching to the choir in terms of personality. Like I think that if I bumped it up a couple notches, I think I could do a lot better too. Just be extra silly than I normally would be in real life or something like that, to the point that you were making. But at the same time, like you can kind of, I never run out of ideas, because if you welcome in like collaborations, obviously you are a pro, so it's not like it's not like me where you need to have good players on in order to create quality content. But like interesting collaboration ideas and just being a creative individual, I think that you would have done fine for, making either daily content or just a couple times a week, even if that was the case.
Yeah, who knows? And maybe at some point, if I find myself sort of with a lot more free time somehow, if grad school doesn't work out or anything like that, then maybe.
Awesome, man.
So yeah, I'm not sort of closing that gate, but I definitely sort of don't want to commit to at this point I'm back or anything like that. Yeah, it's just something. Where, yeah, if opportunity comes up, and yeah,
that's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. I think that you'd be an absolute stud at YouTube, even without putting on a fake persona. But coming back to the game after a lengthy break, you kind of left us in the beginning, I believe, of the bridge spam meta. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had just like my Night Witch is still like level 1. I think that's pretty much explained.
Right, so like right when Night Witch came out, kind of, and was super OP. Yeah. And now you came back in a big difference. The meta is a lot different than it was during bridge spam, So what do you think overall of the meta? And then more specifically, why do you think that your Hog deck actually works pretty well here? It's the Hog deck, which is very interesting because it has Rocket instead of Fireball, and it has Archers instead of Musketeer.
Yeah, so I definitely see a difference between ladder and sort of tournament level meta. Except when I start seeing people level 5 Mega Knight, on ladder, I'm seeing really, really heavy decks for tournament level where you're able to put things together like Mega Knight P.E.K.K.A. or Mega Knight Golem. And I think that is making it quite difficult to play a lot of these cheaper sort of cycly decks where you just get punished by a big Mega Knight drop that clears your little push, and then they throw a tank in front of that, and you can't do much to defend. And so what I end up doing right now, I'm playing a good amount of ladder with this Hog Rocket Cycle deck. On ladder especially, I'm sure a lot of viewers like to push on ladder as well, so I'll talk a bit more about it.
Yeah.
Games are so short, right? And so if you find yourself in a bad deck matchup, especially with a card like Rocket, which can clear defensively, it's actually really, really underrated card, I think, where as you'll see, so many of the top decks now have Rocket, on ladder at least, because you can always clear 3 of these win conditions, which I think make up so many of the decks on ladder, at least at the top. You have any Ice Golem or Knight plus Hog push is just gone with Rocket. You just Rocket it. Make sure to push the Hog back when you Rocket. So if you Rocket but you push the Hog towards your tower, the Hog might get 1 swing. But if you Rocket a Ice Golem and Hog push while knocking the Hog back, that push is gone. Same thing with an Ice Golem and Balloon push. You Rocket that, gone. Same thing with an X-Bow. Rocket that, plus the X-Bow will get a little bit of chip damage in your tower, but if you drop like an Ice Spirit or Skeletons or Ice Golem to block your tower, that push is gone. And so you find yourself in a bad deck matchup, you just Rocket whatever push they have, and you just stall the entire game. And it's a really safe way to keep your trophy count high. And then when you find yourself with a decent matchup, you have your Hog, which cycles really, really quickly with the rest of your deck. As you'll see, I guess you're playing some of the replays here.
Yeah, we're watching right now.
Under decks, I faced a Bowler Tornado Ewiz deck, and I still managed to cycle past all his counters, especially when they try and a lot of times decks with P.E.K.K.A. or Bowler, they'll try and drop the Bowler or the P.E.K.K.A. preemptively, and they'll drop it down the weak tower. So say I have the right tower down to half health. Oftentimes, before I drop my Hog, they'll just drop a P.E.K.K.A. or a Bowler and sort of slow walk it down the lane that's low, right? I'm sure viewers get that in the situation all the time. What you end up doing is you just switch lanes on them, and their rotation's completely off. They've dropped their P.E.K.K.A. or their Bowler. You switch lanes with an Ice Golem Hog, and you can still pressure the other tower to death, even if it's at full health, because the Ice Golem Hog is no joke. And then they drop their other Hog counter, say it's their Ewiz or Tornado, and then you cycle back to Hog. They're not going to get back to P.E.K.K.A. They're not going to have Tornado, and you then are just completely past 2 of their counters. If they have a third, then find a way to either prediction it or play around it with your other cards. There's another matchup here against a double minions deck, and you'd think that this deck would be really bad against double minions, but it's not the best, especially because it doesn't have a fireball, no fire spirits, no arrows, no zap even. But Archer is a really underrated card against double minions. I think not many decks have fireball. This deck happened to have fireball as well as double minions. But if you just play smartly with your cannon, which again I think is another really underrated card in this meta, where it's just so good against all the Hogs, against the Giants, I think Ice Golem plus cannon is really good against your P.E.K.K.A.s, your Mega Knights as well. And people might.
What do you think about having the log in this deck as opposed to Zap? The only reason I ask is because it kind of strikes me that if you had Zap in there, you'd be able to kill any minions with the Ice Golem or Ice Spirit plus Zap, you know?
Yeah, I think that would be feasible. It's just that so many people now use Goblins. I think I'm not too worried about Goblin Barrel. I think that with Zap, you'd still be fine against that. It's just that oftentimes if you're playing a deck that has a Hog counter and you manage to cycle past it, if they just drop Goblins on you, you're kind of screwed. Especially if they're smart enough to do so. Oftentimes, you can get around Goblins if you play Zap by doing like a Hog, Ice Spirit plus Zap sort of combo. But oftentimes, good players will block your Ice Spirit with like an Ice Golem, and then you can't do anything against the Goblins. Whereas with a Log, if you're able to predict or just know that it's in their hand, you throw the Log down. And oftentimes, if you know that that's what's in their hand, you'll clip the Goblins with your Log, and Hog gets a ton of damage.
One thing I wanted to ask you too is actually, do you have another replay that I can play just while we?
Hopefully, it's not the same as the other ones.
I only have like a couple more questions for you, but one's really important. So while you're looking, I noticed that you do something very interesting, and you play your Hog not always at the bridge. Like very often, you play your hog back. Why?
Love to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So against decks that are just as quick cycling as mine, I started doing that even before I stepped away from the game, and it's super super useful and actually really does a good job of cycling past your opponent. So if you think about it, if you're on the same exact sort of price of deck as your opponent, you can't really outcycle them if you play hog at the bridge and cycle all your cards and then play hog again. If their deck's as cheap as yours and they have cannon, for example, then they play the cannon at the same time and they're just going to have it in their hand at the exact same time you have the hog. But if you play the hog in the back, I used to do this a lot more with fireball decks, but I'm doing it now with hog decks as well. If they play the cannon early, so let's say you play the hog in the back, and they play the cannon immediately as you play the hog. That way they stay on cycle. Then you fireball it down. You fireball it down, now they have no hog. The cannon's gone, right? And your hog hasn't even made it to their side of the bridge yet, and then you get to counter their little troops that they drop, goblins, archers, or whatever, to defend your hog. So that's a win. Now, if they don't play the cannon immediately, what happens is you end up building up like 3 or 4 elixir as the hog makes its way up to halfway point. And then they drop their cannon. So basically, you're about 4 elixir ahead of when they drop the cannon, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
At that point, you can cycle back to your hog a lot faster than they can cycle back to their cannon. And
that's very true, yeah.
That's how you end up cycling past their cannon. I do it against mini P.E.K.K.A decks as well. Against mini P.E.K.K.A, I've gotten into this situation often where I play the hog in the back, and then they play their mini P.E.K.K.A in the back. And with this rocket deck, I rocket down the mini P.E.K.K.A.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and then they're left scrambling because they have no hog counter. The other thing, if you play hog in the back and they drop their mini P.E.K.K.A way up front to try and avoid the rocket, then you can sort of do this thing where you sort of lure the mini P.E.K.K.A forward with like skeletons or archers or ice golem, and it walks towards your side of the map, and your hog just sprints past it. Is another thing. Maybe I did it in one of these replays.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I noticed that you like your hog play is very unique. Like you also play the hog oftentimes like way closer to the center of the arena even when you do play it instead of like at the bridge. Is that just to, like you said, kind of avoid mini P.E.K.K.As or whatever their counter might be in the lane?
Yeah, it's either to avoid mini P.E.K.K.As or to avoid rocket combos. So a lot of so now players have gotten really good at hitting your hog with like your ice golem hog push with a rocket. And so if you just line your ice golem and hog straight up, they'll not really have a hard time hitting your hog with a rocket. But if you go the ice golem at the bridge and then you drop the hog like in the center of the arena and it's coming in at an angle and they're not really used to targeting the rocket at that, oftentimes they'll miss or they'll take a second longer and your hog will get an extra swing out of that. So I'll either do that hog in the center trick against rocket decks when I know that they have rocket in hand to counter the hog, or if it's sort of to jump around the melee unit like a mini P.E.K.K.A.
Awesome. And last question for you about the deck is why do you, or talk about like the playing the rocket. Obviously we know playing it defensively for value is a no-brainer, but how often are you using the rocket offensively, and how does that change when it gets to double elixir time?
Yeah, so offensively, I don't think I use it. I mean, obviously you use it against like Elixir Collector, 3 Musketeers, and that's sort of offensively, but not really. It's really similar still to the Fireball deck, where in single elixir, I guess it's slightly different. So in single elixir, I'm not using it as often unless it's a clear sort of target, like a Executioner in the back, or I don't really take many risky prediction rocket plays in single.
Would you rocket a bowler, or do you not do that?
I would only rocket a bowler if I knew that they weren't going to get their win condition by the time the bowler walked up. If somehow their rotation was such that they're not able to punish you, because the bowler stays alive, right? And if they put a giant in front of that, you're going to be scrambling really low on elixir because you didn't kill the bowler. They only spent 5. You have to still deal with the bowler. So if their win condition is way in the back of their rotation, then maybe get away with it. But I probably wouldn't.
What about Inferno Dragon? Would you rocket Inferno Dragon on tower?
Yeah, I may. For Inferno Dragon, I mean, you actually kill the thing, right?
Yeah.
At which point you know you're going to be behind in elixir for most of the game. At that point, you put yourself down by 2 in like a really clear negative trade like that, and your opponent plays smartly. They'll keep you sort of under pressure. I'll do that if I know that they have a ton of counters maybe in hand, and the only way I'm going to win is by rocket cycling. And let's say I have their tower down to like 3/4 health. So if I were to rocket down the Inferno Dragon, get it down to like half health or so, then I could actually feasibly rocket cycle it down.
Okay.
But yeah, usually it'll be just punish in single elixir with your really, really quick cycling deck. And it'll either against expensive or medium expensive decks, you just play like a typical Hog Cycle deck.
Mm-hmm.
And against cheaper decks, you do that trick where you do Hog in the back. And so you should almost always be able to get them down to like half tower health in single elixir, unless you start with a really bad rotation somehow. And then at that point, you just play defense and you can play some rockets defensively, and then once you get double elixir and they're like 2 rockets away from taking their tower down, then you just cycle your rockets, which is a lot more efficient than cycling fireballs.
Yeah.
Your damage per elixir with rocket is way higher, which is why I'm using it now for defense against these hog decks, against balloon decks, against Expo, and it's just really good at cycling out the game once you've already gotten your hog damage in single elixir.
What about my viewers who are like mid-level arenas and might have a higher level fireball than rocket? Would you still use rocket if it was 1 level lower than fireball, or would you opt to use the higher level spell in this deck?
I don't know exactly what the interactions are of an under-leveled rocket with that many cards. With Expo, the thing is, I don't think people see Expo that often.
I don't think so.
So that's fine. An under-leveled rocket against Expo does suck because you don't hear the thing and it just wrecks your tower.
It still does like 600 damage or whatever, Yeah,
the thing is, a rocket is a rare card, so it's not too crazy to like level up. But I suppose if you're facing hog decks where hog is like 2 levels higher than your rocket or even more, then rocket isn't actually a feasible defensive play against the hog.
Okay, nice, man. Well,
fireball would be better.
Okay, great, man. Well, thank you for coming back to the channel, man. It's always such a pleasure to have you. You always bring the thunder with the advice, as you didn't let us down today in that regard as well. Any shout outs, anything like that you wanna, or anything you wanna say that I haven't asked before we let you go?
Oh man, I miss so many people from the game. It'd be tough to name names because I'll leave you alone, but I'll still name a few names because why not? Right. My boy Ash, first and foremost. It's been really tough being away from you, your channel, and just catching up, and so thanks for having me.
Shucks, thanks, dude.
I want to shout out to our Reddit Alpha. Just everyone in that community has been super awesome. Thanks for having me back. Surgical Goblin did message me on Twitter, and just an amazing guy overall. And yeah, shout out to him. It's been amazing seeing what he's been able to accomplish. And shout out to Team Queso, and apologies to them for my terrible communication. I'm happy to sort of be able to get back a little bit into the game and enjoy it once again, and I hope that it'll continue to be that way. And yeah, shout out to, I guess, all the viewers in your channel, Ash. And
awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, dude. Thank you for the shout out, and also couldn't agree with you more about Surge and the rest of the community, Reddit Alpha, and really everybody has been really awesome. I think that everything's kind of taken a turn for the better over the last few months. I don't know why, but it just feels that way. So again, thanks for coming on, man. But wishing you the best of luck in whatever you want to do. And this time I have your cell phone number, so you can't sneak away from me for too long. But thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Ash.
No problem. So guys, that is going to do it for today's video. Loved having Marcel P back. I hope you guys did as well. You can see his information in the description below, including his YouTube channel if you want to go back and watch some of his old videos, and subscribe to see if he has any new ones coming out in the future. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that. Make sure you check out my YouTube partner, Bren Chong. His information is also in the description below. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.